the Utah Hockey Club. Hopefully the Utah Yeti. I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are, but that's my front runner in terms of names. I like the. It's not really alliteration because it's not the same. I don't think is that technically alliteration if it's phonetic alliteration or is it does it have to be the same letter at the start? I don't actually know.
No clue. I'm too dumb for that.
Yeah, me too, man. I'm not a linguist, that's for sure. As you
No.
can probably tell, listening to me talk. But yeah, so Utah, as the Arizona Coyotes last year, they were seventh in the Central. At 5v5 or at even strength, they were 21st in Corsi for percentage, 23rd in expected goals for percentage, and 23rd in scoring chances for percentage. Their 5v5 save percentage was 22nd with a 903. Their shooting percentage at even strength was 8th at 10.24%, so they converted pretty well, even though they didn't generate a ton. Their power play was 15th in the league at 22% conversion. Their shot and chance generation, when I looked under the hood, was actually really bad. It was bottom 3 in the league on the power play in most of those statistics, which was surprising to me. But they had the 7th highest shooting percentage on the power play in the league. So, I mean, they kind of showed that they might be high efficiency converters. But there is, I mean, people are really excited and really high on Utah this year, and they did bring in some names that I think will move the needle a little bit. But I do think that maybe we're a little higher on them than we should be. Like that, the like being like the 30th ranked power play in terms of scoring chances produced is, I mean, that's not good, man. Like
No.
that's reason to believe that they could still not be very good moving forward, even though I like some of the names on this team and I like some of the names that could play on that power play. Well, I don't know, man. What do you think about that? Is that surprising to you when you see that? It was surprising to me.
Yeah, it is surprising because I actually remember the Coyotes last year going on a few runs. They were in the playoff picture for I think the first half of the season, and then I think it was like post Christmas break, it just collapsed. They went on like a 10-11 game losing streak, and I think that's after that. That's where these numbers come in. To be fair to them, the one caveat is there's a lot of drama behind this team, and when you're a player playing for the Coyotes and you don't know if you're going to be in this organization and, there's a certain vibe to that. I think that definitely helped in terms of why they had such ugly numbers for the rest of that. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where they go from here. I think it'll be a better season.
Definitely. I mean, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see them playing in a real arena as well, and just to see the vibes change around the team. But it's also going to be fun because they brought in some big names on the back end. So in terms of key departures, they lost Travis Dermott, who apparently has a PTO with Edmonton, which is interesting. That came out today. They lost Travis Boyd, who spent some time on the top line over the last few years, which, oh boy, it's not great. This guy's a fourth line center at best. And JJ Mosier, who went over in the trade to Tampa Bay for Mikhail Sergachev, who was the most key addition. And then John Marino also came over, not necessarily a fantasy relevant guy, but a guy that is going to likely move the needle for them on defense, which is something they could certainly use.
Totally.
So what do you think, buddy? I mean, this team is obviously better, is it not?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Just with Sergachev alone, that's quite exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing what he could do.
Yeah, and I mean, the other factor is they have a really young core that is just going to be another year older. I think there's going to be a few younger guys that are going to take a step this year. So I think, yeah, they're going to be fun. They're going to be fun to watch for sure. And then in terms of goaltending, we've got Connor Ingram, who really stepped out and proved to be the preferred option of between him and Karel Vejmelka. He started 48 starts with a 918 even strength save percentage, which was really, really solid. Karel Vejmelka really struggled after a couple really solid years as basically a volume starter for the Coyotes. He had 33 starts last year with a 903 even strength save percentage. So not amazing. I do think he'll bounce back, but I do think that Connor Ingram is the 1A in this tandem here. Any arguments with that, my friend?
No, I agree. I'm such a big fan of Ingram. He was my 0G hero last year. I wish him nothing but the best, and I hope everyone is low on this team so I can grab this gem again this year for all my 0G leagues.
Absolutely, man. That he was a big one for me as well. And he's there's always somebody, and there's always multiple people, to be honest. We had him, we had Alex Lyon at times, we had Charlie Lindgren. There's just always like, as long as you're paying attention, you can find these guys for sure.
You just gotta pay attention. That's it. Keep listening to Apples and Genos. We're gonna keep you filled in, and you're gonna have no problems doing the 0G strategy.
That's right, baby. I love to hear it. All right, scheduling quirks for the Utah HC. Gugsy, take it away.
Yeah, so 12 back-to-backs, that's tied for 16th. 33 off nights, that's tied for 5th. Weeks 22 and 24, they'll have a playoff schedule of 10 games with 3 off nights. In weeks 23 to 25, they'll have 12 games with 4 off nights.
Yeah, so they still have a ton of off nights, so that's kind of that's what we came to expect with the Coyotes. So they're kind of carrying that over to Utah. So that's really nice. I think throughout the year that's going to help you out a ton. Their playoff schedules are pretty decent. Not a ton of off nights at the end of the year, but they do play 10 games. It's pretty solid over weeks 22 to 24, and 12 games in 23 to 25. Also pretty good too. So I do think that they do have a pretty nice schedule. Nothing. It's not amazing. It's not bad. It's pretty good. So yeah, I think the fact that they've got those off nights through the year, I think, should give you a little bit of pause when you're deciding between them and somebody else. So in terms of the power play projection, I've got Clayton Keller, Nick Schmaltz, Dylan Guenther as locks. I also think Mikhail Sergachev is a lock on the top power play. You can give me your opinion on that in a second, but I know that Blake was a little bit higher on Sean Durzi, but I think Sergachev is the guy. And then I have Logan Cooley and Barrett Hayton splitting time as the fourth forward on the power play. I think they leaned Logan Cooley last year. Obviously, Hayton really struggled, had some injury trouble, and was moved down the lineup a bit. But I do think that he still has some value there and could potentially produce on the power play. But Logan Cooley, obviously, he's got the pedigree, and he could potentially be a lot more dynamic, I think. So I'm definitely leaning more towards Cooley, but I do think that there is potential for them to split a bit of time there. What are your thoughts on that situation, as well as the Sergachev versus Durzi situation?
Yeah, I 2 years ago, I think Hayton really had a coming out party. I think that was the 22-23 season, the later half of that season. Hayton was a beast. His analytics were pretty good. He was shooting a decent amount. And so I think a lot of us had high hopes from last year. I remember I think it was Blake who was pretty high on Hayton last draft season, and unfortunately Hayton just couldn't get it together again, as you said, due to injuries and whatnot. Cooley, I think that guy has quite a ceiling. If you remember, like last preseason, the Coyotes Twitter was throwing some jam at the Habs. Remember that? Imagine not picking Cooley number 1. And they kind of ate dirt throughout the season because Cooley really tailed off and Slavkovsky kind of woke up. But I think Cooley would be given the priority for that power play 1 spot over Hayton just because of that ceiling he has. He's expected to be a hell of a player. But And as for Sergachev, go ahead.
It's amazing how every year there's someone that has just like a crazy highlight reel goal in
Yeah.
the preseason, and then everyone's like, "This guy's going to be the greatest player of all time,"
Yeah.
and then it usually doesn't work out, and you remember that
Yeah.
preseason means basically nothing. But yeah,
Yeah.
Logan Cooley had, I think it was the first goal anyone scored in the preseason. It was like a spinorama through two LA defensemen, and then pulled it forehand. It was just like literally probably the goal of the year last year,
Yeah.
between preseason, regular season, and playoffs. Like that was, it was insane. But
It's a
then
beauty.
definitely we all had to temper our expectations in terms of his season long production. Anyways, you keep going. You were going to talk about Sergachev and Durzi.
Yeah, no, that's the big move. That's like the biggest move this franchise has made in a long time, getting a player like Sergachev in such a
Yeah.
blockbuster trade. I don't think you're gonna not put him on power play one. I think that's his. I think that was his as soon as he joined the team. Although you never know, maybe Durzi's a good puck mover. He's shown some good power play pedigree. If I were to bet money on it, I think it's Sergachev's power play.
I agree. I definitely, the one caveat there is Durzi did sign a long term contract, for a decent amount of money.
Yeah.
So it's that's an interesting point. If you're playing devil's advocate here, that's definitely a point to consider. Like, okay, you're paying him a ton of money. He so far has been your power play quarterback. Are you planning on sharing the power play, or are you just planning on having him be productive at 5v5? So
Right.
it's interesting. That's certainly a point to consider. But Sergachev also still makes more money and has historically been considerably more productive than Durzi, even at Durzi's best. So yeah, I still think, I agree. I think Sergachev is the guy there. Forward projections, my friend, for Utah. Why don't you walk us through those?
Barrett Hayton, he's getting 19 goals, 23 assists, 42 points. Clayton Keller, the star of the show, 33 goals, 44 assists, 77 points. Nick Schmaltz, high efficiency. Nick Schmaltz is going to get 25 goals with 26 shots, probably. No, I'm just kidding. 25 goals, 45 assists, 70 points. Logan Cooley, 22 goals, 31 assists, 53 points. Lawson Cruz, he's a banger's beauty. 24 goals, 21 assists, 45 points with a nice 175 hits for you. Dylan Guenther, potential Canucks legend who Jim Benning just pissed away. 29 goals, 33 assists, 62 points for Dylan Guenther. Matias Michelli, with one of the most fun names in the NHL, Matias Michelli will get you 18 goals, 30 assists, 48 points. And Josh Doan. Oh yeah, Josh Doan, 23 goals, 17 assists, 40 points.
Who did the Canucks take over Guenther?
We
Is
just
that,
gave
or
we gave the pick away
oh,
for
they traded the
OEL.
pick. Oh, that was the OEL. Oh my god. That's so
Yeah,
awful.
that's
That's
that's Jim Benning.
yeah,
That's some
that
Jim
hurts.
Benning
I
hockey right
mean,
there.
brother, the Leafs have had many of those deals over the years. Infamously,
Seth
very
Jarvis.
similarly, the Seth Jarvis is the big one that
Yeah,
they had to trade their first round pick to get rid of Patrick Marleau.
that's
And that
rough.
ended up being Seth Jarvis. So that really hurts. I mean, obviously, no guarantee that they would have picked Jarvis because it was
Yeah,
later in the draft than a Dylan Guenther situation. But yeah,
yeah,
that hurts as
yeah.
well for sure.
I mean,
Yeah, like are there any are there any players you want to comment on? Like are there any surprises here?
let's see, Josh Doan. I want to see your opinion on Josh Doan. Do you just project him to? I actually don't know much of anything about Josh Doan. Is he a goal scoring kind of guy, or what do you think? What do you got on him?
I don't know a ton either. I think he showed some skill in the limited time that he had. I don't see him getting more than third line minutes this year, but I mean,
Yeah,
it's certainly a possibility. But I do think he's pretty far down the depth chart at right wing. I think there's not really much chance of him surpassing Schmaltz or Guenther. They're pretty much locked in there. So,
yeah,
but I do think that he's a guy that could potentially be at least semi-productive, and maybe a solid streamer.
yeah.
But maybe a guy that could flourish even further than that. So, I will be honest, I don't know a ton either.
Oh,
But
fair enough.
that is, I thought I'd project him just because he's a name that is exciting for some people for
Yeah,
sure.
he is exciting.
Dylan Guenther, I've got him for 62 points. I think people are actually a little bit more aware of Guenther than I thought. I don't know that you're going to get as much value as I had hoped. But I do think this is a guy. Nate's talked about him a lot, but this is a guy that's gonna be have a huge breakout year this year. I think
Yeah, I agree.
he showed a lot in a limited time, and they gave him so much opportunity, and I just don't see that changing. Um, so I like him a lot. Schmaltz, I've always been a Nick Schmaltz guy. I got him for 70 points. And like you said, maybe 25 goals on 26 shots. You're not far off. He does not do a lot peripherally. But yeah. And then Logan Cooley is another guy that I think could potentially flourish more than those 53 points. I think that he's got a pretty high ceiling. It's just
Yeah.
a matter of him taking a step next year. So that's a very conservative Cooley projection, in my opinion. But in terms of defense, why don't you walk us through Sergachev and Durzi?
Mikhail Sergachev, 10 goals, 42 assists, 52 points, and he's a banger, so he's giving you 132 hits with 126 blocks. Sean Durzi, 9 goals, 29 assists for 38 points with 175 blocks.
Yeah, so Durzi's still a guy that you could roster. Even though he may not get the top power play, I still think he'll be pretty productive at 5v5 and will probably play a lot of minutes. Doesn't hit a lot, but he does block. But Sergachev is in my opinion just gonna get the run of the mill here. So yeah, I like the situation that he's in a ton. My top three targets are Dylan Guenther, number one. Guenther in Yahoo leagues is actually going at 182.7, so he is getting drafted, but really late. And then in Apples and Genos leagues, 118.9, and I do think that he could outperform that ADP. So I like Guenther, and that's the range where I think I'm comfortable taking a swing on him. Nick Schmaltz, always perennially disrespected, and he is once again this year. Yahoo ADP is 161, Apples and Genos ADP 162.5. For a right winger that could get you 70 points, that is great value for Nick Schmaltz. And then Logan Cooley, he's not even really getting drafted in Yahoo leagues, and in Apples and Genos leagues, his ADP is 230. This guy, like I said, could take a step. I know I've got him for only 53 points, but I think there's a scenario in a world where he gets up over 60, and then you're a lot more interested there. And for a guy that's not being drafted, that's nice value. So I'm probably. I'm keeping an eye on him for sure. Do you have any thoughts on those guys? Any other guys that you're targeting here?
No, my number one is also Dylan Guenther. As much as it hurts to see him be so damn good, he's totally awesome. His ADP is a total steal. I'm gonna be getting him in as many leagues as I possibly can. I'm gonna reach for him. I have high hopes for him. And as for like Logan Cooley and a lot of these guys performing beyond expectations, I'd imagine they're pretty excited. Utah seems to have embraced this hockey club with warmth. If you see some interviews of like fan meet and greets and stuff, it seems like everyone's pretty jazzed up. So almost a totally opposite vibe from last year on the Coyotes. I'd imagine it's hard to like quantify that into fantasy hockey analytics, but I like vibes, and when vibes are good, you perform good for the most part. So I'm hoping these guys have some happiness and some kick in their step and utilize that.
Did you say jazzed up on purpose? Because that was an incredible use of a pun there. Utah Jazz?
Utah Jazz.
When you're talking about Utah fans, you said they're really jazzed up. Like, oh man, that is just peak fatherhood right there. Like you're clearly a dad. That wasn't like you didn't even try and do that, and that was incredibly impressive. I noticed
when
that.
You're a dad. Just thank you. Yeah, dad to dad.
Yeah,
there you go.
Oh yeah, I noticed that for sure.